Caught on camera, 2 Israeli settlers arrested for attacking Palestinian shepherds in the West Bank. What are the consequences of this attack, and how significant is the continual expansion of settlements themselves? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Imran Garda. Israeli police have arrested 2 settlers in the West Bank, charging them with assaulting a Palestinian family. The attacks were captured on camera and are the first to result in arrests. Were authorities left with no other choice but to reprimand the attackers because of the video evidence? Or is it a sign of a more serious approach to dealing with settler violence? Mohammed Shakir has more.
Less than a week since these images were aired on global television networks, Israeli police announced the arrest of 2 Jewish settlers. The assault on the Palestinian shepherds had been caught on film as part of a human rights project. Last Sunday, 4 hooded men walking from the Susia settlement near Hebron in the West Bank attacked an elderly man, his wife and nephew on Palestinian land. Their crime was simply allowing their animals to graze near the illegally built Israeli settlement. As the first blows land, the woman filming, who is the daughter-in-law of the elderly couple, drops the camera and runs for help. Mrs. Nawaja spent 3 days in hospital after the attack.
The settlers came here, settlers from Susia, and attacked us and beat us up badly with sticks. This is not the first time they come here. Every 3 months they come.
This footage is from a video camera handed out by B'Tselem, an Israeli human rights group. The group's project is called Shooting Back and includes handing out more than 100 video cameras to record such attacks.
The footage wasn't captured by coincidence. B'Tselem placed a camera with that family because we have repeated reports of attacks and abuses by settlers in that area. Most of them go uninvestigated. Most of the complaints we filed don't ever lead to any kind of arrests or records for any of the settlers.
The police called it a rare incident, but B'Tselem reported that it investigated 47 cases of physical assault, gunfire, beating, kicking, or stone throwing by settlers against Palestinians last year and reported them all to the police. These pictures were the much-needed material evidence that forced the Israeli authorities to look into this latest attack. But some question if they will have any impact on the world media and force a change in public opinion, especially in the US.
I think the media in the United States will give these stories little prominence, and in the cases where they do put the story on the television station, what they will do is then have someone from the lobby there to explain why this is not as bad as it looks. It's very hard in the United States, especially in the mainstream media, to have critical pieces about Israel appear all over the television screen for long periods of time.
The latest arrests were not expected after many similar incidents have gone unnoticed. But what happens next is likely to corner the Israeli authorities further. Any punishment may imply that these settlements are illegal, or that the Israeli authorities have to provide the Palestinians with the same kind of security they provide for their own settlers. Mohammed Shakir for Inside Story.
Well, joining our discussion today are our guests in Tel Aviv, Oren Yakovovich, leader of the Shooting Back project at B'Tselem, the Israeli Information Center for Human Rights in the occupied territories. In Ramallah, Wissam Ahmed, a spokesperson of Al-Haq human rights organization. And in Jerusalem, Akiva Eldar, author and chief political columnist for the Israeli national daily Haaretz. Welcome to the program, gentlemen. We had tried extensively to get a voice representing the settlers. Unfortunately, we tried a half a dozen people. All of them refused to come onto the show. Be that as it may, Mr. Yakovovich, if I could start off with you, how significant is the documentation and exposure of an incident like this?
This is very, very significant, very important, because you see the result. I can assure you that without this footage, nobody would be arrested. First of all, because you don't have visual evidence, and also because of the situation in the West Bank. There is a lack of law enforcement, and this footage is obviously led in the end of this week to arrest of 2 people. And I can tell you that I was in contact with the police and followed the police declaration after the attack. And from day to day, because of the media pressure and the exposure, you see that they're taking it more and more seriously. In the first day when it's happened, I spoke with the police. They told me that they don't have enough materials to do any arrest. And then slowly, day after day, you see that they're saying they start investigation, then it's more intense investigation, and then finally they arrest someone. And this kind of attacks are happening almost every week. Maybe not that severe as we see in this footage, but definitely this footage had a huge impact of making the law enforcement agency into action, to work.
Akiva Eldar, would you agree that there's only accountability when the camera captures it?
Well, I'm a little bit cynical about it. You know, I wrote a 650 pages book called Lords of the Land, and you can find so many cases starting from 67 until today of cases such as this one, even more severe. You know, one of the settlers' leaders, Pinchas Wallerstein, shot to death a Palestinian kid who just threw stones at him, and he served maybe 5 or 6 months in community service, as far as I remember. The question is, what happens to those people when they come to court? What is the message to their colleagues, to their friends? Are they going to get away with it or not? So the police will investigate because there will be some pressure, and in a few months they will forget. And the very question that we should ask ourselves is, can we really coexist, we the Israelis, the settlers, and the Palestinians who live in the same area and fighting for the same piece of land? So it brings us back to, you know, we just had a ceasefire with the Hamas today, but there is no ceasefire in the West Bank because there are more and more settlements. Just last week I published a story that 1,300 units were approved by the Ministry of Interior in East Jerusalem. And when Condoleezza Rice came here and reprimanded the Prime Minister Olmert for this, he was just laughing at her. And I think this is the basic story. Is the international community going to send a clear message to Israel to stop it? Because, you know, according to our Prime Minister, a two-state solution is essential for Israel as a Jewish state.
Well, we'll broaden it out a little bit later in the program and look at the international community. You mentioned that you are skeptical. With all due respect, you have said that you've documented this extensively in your book, but the masses won't be able to read your 650-page book. Do you agree that a picture tells 1,000 words, and this could possibly galvanize some support for the Palestinians against the settlers who are attacking them?
You know, I'm sure that you will hear Israeli officials who will even take credit for this and will tell you that, you know, Israel is the only place in the Middle East where you have such human rights. And, you know, I appreciate what B'Tselem is doing, and I think we should be proud of them. But then they will tell you, you see, Israel is a democracy and Israel takes measures. But you see, you know, in '93, when we signed the Oslo Agreement, there were 110,000 settlers. Now we have close to 300,000 settlers. And yeah, I'm very happy that it's making the headlines and we are talking about this right now. But, you know, since I've been there for such a long time, allow me to be skeptical and to ask those questions about what is going to happen a week or 2 weeks from now. And yes, I encourage B'Tselem to keep doing this, and I'm proud of them.
Wissam Ahmed, let's touch on one of the points that Akiva Eldar made. He touched on the point that perhaps impunity reigns with the settlers in the occupied territories. From your research and your experience, is that the case?
Absolutely. Imran, Al-Haq has documented numerous cases of settler violence against Palestinians. The Palestinians face settler violence on a daily basis. The main reason that this particular incident has gotten the attention that it has is due to the videotape and the fact that a Palestinian woman was brave enough to stand her ground on her land with the video camera that was provided by Beit Salem. But for the most part, settler violence incidents go completely unpunished. And in some cases, when Palestinians present complaints to the Israeli occupation forces, those submitting the complaints themselves are even arrested. And just to give you an example of the impunity that the settlers enjoy, Al-Haq documented an incident in which a Palestinian family's home was attacked by a settler, and that settler dropped his ID after leaving the scene of the attack. The family took that ID to the Israeli occupation forces, and the response they got from the Israeli occupation forces was that next time you should videotape the incident in order to have the evidence necessary. Well, thankfully, this particular incident does provide enough evidence and enough pressure from the international community and the press that it's received to have some steps taken. But for the vast majority of cases, it's the settlers that enjoy impunity, and in the end, the Israeli occupation forces that are there to protect the settlers, not the Palestinians that are under occupation.
Oren Yakubovich, besides providing evidence and documentation, is the camera also a sort of safety mechanism or deterrent for the Palestinians?
In some cases, I just want to relate to what my colleague said. This is exactly why this project started, from frustration, because we realize also there are so many testimonies we're collecting year after year and nothing happened. So all this project with the camera, the shooting back project, started exactly from this reason, to bring proof, to make sure that they will start doing something. And I would completely agree with Akiva. I'm not sure that they would, just because it was documented, it's going to be in court and they're going to suffer from any punishment in the end of the day. But this is the start. And yes, we hear about many cases from the Palestinians themselves that the moment they're pulling out the camera, the settler, the attacker is escaping. And it's happened before, especially after a few occasions went out publicly and made a lot of headlines. And it's to protect them. And in some cases, we have some Palestinians begging for cameras, and we don't have so many, like we have 100, it's quite a lot, but you know, there's so many people that want camera now, and you're getting calls almost once a day from people that want camera. Some of them even telling me, bring me a broken camera that will not even film, just that they will have the camera with them, so they can pull it out the moment something like this happens, and especially in South Hebron Hill, when the area is completely remote, there is hardly any law enforcement there, and they really want the camera.
I just want to mention again that we had invited numerous settler representatives and leaders to come onto this program and give their point of view. They refused to come onto the show. Akiva Elder, I wonder, is it because the settlers' position is indefensible?
Well, let me, to be fair to them, I think that most of the settlers, when we talk about settlers, we have to distinguish between the mainstream settlers who live quietly and would like to prove that you know, they are not undermining peace and security in the area, and they can live there forever. Those people who were involved in this incident and are responsible for most of the incidents are not representing the majority of the settlers. And they are, you know, I was almost beaten by those people when I came over to document this kind of cases. And I was told by the police that if I will not leave the area, they will arrest me. So I fully agree with Mr. Yakubovich that the police and the IDF, the Israeli army, defines itself as the main protectors of the settlers and not the Palestinian. And I am afraid that what will happen next time is that they will steal the cameras, the video cameras, and I'm afraid that Beit Salem will have to go fundraising for more cameras. And the other thing is that they cover their faces, so they will find a way out of this. And yes, I'm not surprised that nobody was willing to participate in this important program because they have nothing to say.
Okay, gentlemen, it's time for a short break. When we come back, we look deeper into the systematic expansion of settlement building activities, despite repeated promises by consecutive Israeli governments. Do stay with us.